Hey guys, welcome to the 5th episode of the MMA Roundtable. Pumped to bring you more MMA news with my friends Ray, Patrick, and Chris from the MMA podcast that Chris and I do, and MMA Mental, the podcast that Ray and Patrick do. We didn't have a fight last weekend, which is the first time in about 4 or 5 weeks since we've run into that problem, but we still got tons of news to break down, so strap in, let's do it. And like I mentioned at the top of the podcast just about 10 seconds ago, this is a conglomeration of sorts between the MMA podcast and MMA Mental. Big thanks to everyone who's been listening to these roundtable shows. And of course our buddy Ray across the pond and our buddy Patrick and Callie. You guys want to shout out MMA Mental real quick before we get on to a business? Also, our roundtable show, if you're listening to us on iTunes, we're live on Ustream every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And definitely if you enjoy us in recorded form, check us out live.
Right, brilliant. I've got quite a bit to shout out this week, so I'm quite excited. So first of all, for anyone that isn't already doing this, check us out on Facebook and Twitter. Our handle is at MMA Mental. MMA Mental is also sponsoring its first event, which takes place this Friday. It's Fat Boys Cage Productions Halloween Massacre, which is sponsored by ourselves. It's this Friday, 26. If anyone wants to fight or buy tickets or table, it's $200 a table, $20 a seat, and they can call Cody on 406-768-8514, and that event's in Poplar, Montana. Confirmed guest for this week on our own podcast. We've got a UK prospect. He's 6'6". His name's Omar Frederick. We watched him fight a couple of weeks ago at Lockdown MMA, and he won with a nice knee to get a knockout. We've also got UFC bantamweight John Albert, and we've got 2 guests confirmed for next week. We've got Pat Miletich confirmed, and Bellator's Brian Rogers. And I've also got 2 fighters that have agreed to do video diaries with MMA Mental, and they're going to do that a daily diary a week before their fight, and that's Paul the Titan Taylor and Spencer Hewitt, who's going to be making his BAMMA debut.
Wow, you guys are kind of putting us to shame the last couple of weeks, huh? Yeah, it's been a little bit of an issue with us going over to Ustream, wanting to make sure we were set up before we started bringing fighters on. Been talking with a bunch of people, not exactly sure who we're going to have on this week, but I am goddamn determined to get somebody on this week because we haven't had any fighters on the last few weeks. So we're definitely going to have somebody on, whether I need to reach out to a prior guest, reach out to Albert or Hoagland or Crookshank maybe, see if they'll pop on. Did reach out. Henzo Gracie actually said he was definitely going to be on the next couple weeks, but I think he's traveling. He said overseas, and I have been seeing some people tweet about the Abu Dhabi World Championships. Not sure if that's coming up, if he's going there to just train some people, or if the actual event's going down. But he said he was going to be traveling overseas, so unfortunately we won't have Henzo on this week, but we'll definitely let you know as soon as we find out. We'll post it up on the MMA podcast, and our podcast is live just like this one, and we go Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, or 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. If you'd like to call in to this podcast or the MMA podcast on Wednesdays, you can call us. Our number is 213-457-3380, which if you're listening to us live, you should be able to see that number put up there on the bottom. You can tweet to us at the MMA Podcast or visit our website at themmapodcast.com. And actually, every week, the last few weeks, we've been having two segments. We have our Bonehead of the Week, where we all shout out 4 different boneheads and all vote on who is the supreme bonehead of the week. And we also have our Tweet of the Week, where one of us picks out 5 tweets, and the other one's got to guess. But this week, we're actually bringing you a new game. It's also going to be featured on MMA Mental, and this is the first game we're doing that actually includes the listeners. We aren't going to guess on it this week. We are going to reveal the answers to this week's question next week and kind of keep it going in that format. We'll give new clues for every one of these Fightbusters. We were calling them cryptic clues before, but I guess I'll let Ray kind of explain further about this game, this new segment we're going to start doing every week.
Okay, the segment is called Fightbusters. As Jake said, it will be a cryptic clue. And to give you an example of what the clue is, so what I'll do is I'll take a fighter's name, and then I'll break the name up and give clues that will make the name. So, for example, I could have used the clue. Barbie's best friend holding a rock, and to break that down, Barbie's best friend is Ken. Another word for rock is Stone. You've got your MMA fighter, Ken Stone. So you kind of have to think a little bit outside the box. So I have got 3 clues. So shall I give the clues out now, Jake?
Give them out, buddy.
Okay, right. Clue number 1 is the supporter of a backwards man.
Supporter of a backwards man.
Okay. Clue number 2 is a way to pay in Africa. And clue number 3...
A way to pay in Africa. I hope it isn't this... This isn't somehow some racist clue you're throwing out there.
Of course, it's not.
I'm only kidding. Ray is anything but racist.
It's not racist. Number 3 is wipe your feet, then eat the meat, or you might be sick.
Jesus Christ!
Wipe your feet and beat the meat.
No, wipe your feet, then eat... Listen, wipe your feet, then eat the meat, or you might be sick. Now, if you want to have a guess at these cryptic clues, what I'll do is halfway through the show, we'll give out the initials for the answers as well to try and help. But what you can do, you can either call us on the number that we've given out to guess the clues, or if you're not listening to this live, you can either send me the answers on Twitter at MMA Mental, or you can email me at mmamental@hotmail.com. I'll be giving out the clues again on the MMA Mental podcast on Wednesday, and hopefully Jake will give out the clues again on his show on Wednesday.
Yes, sir, I will.
We will be revealing the answers next week.
Hey, Ray, got a question for you.
Clean your feet, beat my meat, don't get sick.
Yeah, exactly. At first I thought you were saying you wanted us to wipe our feet and then jack off and you'll probably get sick. I was like, what does this have to even do with MMA? But I'm glad you clarified it.
Right, you've got to think about it. Chris, you've got no chance, mate.
No, I don't.
I don't think I do either. The first was supporter of a backwards man, and what was the second one again?
A way to pay in Africa.
A way to pay in Africa, and then clean your feet, eat the meat.
Wipe your feet.
Wipe your feet.
Meat, or you might be sick.
You might be sick. Well, I'm fucking flabbergasted, but yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to hear those initials in the middle of the podcast. And if you have any idea, which I have absolutely zero clue, definitely give us a ring. 213-457-3380 is our phone number. You have anything else to add on our new segment before we move on to our topics?
I do. I think I'm going to keep up a trend of not having any guesses ever. I think I'm going to do that.
When you know them, you'll laugh because they'll be so obvious. That's the best thing about these clues.
And it makes me feel stupid.
They are really obvious. They are really obvious.
Oh man, yeah. That I'm kind of in the same boat as Chris there. I'll guess, something like expensive Benjamin. I'll be like Brock Lesnar. Like, no, it's Rich Franklin. Like, oh yeah. But
sort of a clue.
Happy 420, you guys. It's 420 over here on the West Coast.
Oh snap! That's all we got. Right. But yeah, you all ready to go on to Jones Chael Sonnen?
Please.
Yeah, this news actually broke a day after last week's roundtable, so it is kind of old news, but it's definitely bears repeating. Jon Jones and Chael Sonnen will be fighting each other in April and will be the coaches of the new Ultimate Fighter series. Kind of a lot of discourse with a lot of MMA fans. People aren't necessarily happy that Chael Sonnen, somebody who has yet to fight in the UFC, he did fight in the WEC at 205 pounds, but he's not yet fought in the UFC at 205.
Yeah, he did twice, bro.
Oh, yeah, did he?
He lost to Jeremy Horn as well.
Oh, well, it was that forgettable.
A long time ago.
Yeah, and he hasn't fought in the UFC's light heavyweight division in a long time, and all of a sudden he's getting paired against the champion. They're obviously more deserving champions. This is really kind of obviously a grab. Dana says a lot of the fans wanted it, and I kind of wanted to see it, but I wanted to see Sonnen at least get a couple fights in the 205-pound division before he got a title shot. This really doesn't make a lot of sense. And I'll start off with Ray. Do you really think in any form that Chael Sonnen deserves this title shot at Jon Jones at 205?
We're in a bit of a strange position in this division, and it's the same with the middleweight division. It kind of feels that both champions have cleaned the division out. So you're now scraping the barrel for contenders. We're obviously going to see Dan Henderson fight, then he got injured, and we were going to see a rematch with Lyoto Machida, then obviously he turned the fight down, so he's kind of been put to the back of the queue again. I'll tell you what I'm more excited about, rather than the title shot, I'm more excited about the season of coach with them two, the season of Ultimate Fighter with them two coaching. Because what Chael Sonnen can do is he can promote. You know, you could literally get two turds in a toilet and he'd make it an interesting fight, because that's just the way Chael Sonnen is. He's just great at promoting anything and everything. So I'm looking forward to seeing them coaches on Ultimate Fighter. And after watching them for 12 weeks and watching Sonnen basically taking the piss out of Jon Jones, I'll probably be looking forward to the fight. So does he deserve a title shot? Probably not. Will I be looking forward to the fight? Yes.
Yeah, I'm on the same exact wavelength with you. It's kind of funny how just an aggressive marker like Chael Sonnen, all he did was had a couple Twitter interactions with Jon, and that was enough to really get it going. And then he stepped in for a short-term replacement. Jones turned down that fight. So it just goes to show you that a guy who actively markets himself and really gets people interested will get a fight. I think it's bad for the sport, personally. I feel that in every other sports, you do A, and then you get to B, and then you get to C, and boom, here you are. And in this sport, there's no clear-cut path to anything. Like, some guys have to go on 8 fight win streaks to get a title shot. Kind of like, Junior Dos Santos fighting some of the best out there. It took him, 7 or 8 fights before he got to that title? And he was dominating in every single one of them. And then you have guys like Dan Hardy who squeak by and get a title shot because of timing or just because of, maybe there's just not enough contenders. But I think that it's just really ultimately not a good idea to do it. It is only for the fact that it's been kind of a lackluster year. I mean, UFC 153 did between 350 and 410,000 buys. And that's just really not that much if you think about it compared to like UFC 100 or some of the big ones out there. So they need it. But, Shogun versus Alexander Gustafsson, that's a fight that's coming up. And I see both of those guys deserving it much more considering their recent fights.
Who agrees with you on Chris? That's Dan Henderson. Even the long-time friend Chael Sonnen, Dan Henderson, he put out a tweet stating that basically Chael Sonnen getting this title shot was I forget how exactly he worded it, but he said it was basically a detriment to the sport. And when even one of your friends is coming out and saying that, I mean, that just kind of tells where the MMA community is on this as a whole. I think everybody really wanted to see Sonnen versus Jones, at least in the context of a late replacement fight. Here's Chael Sonnen, the middleweight, who is going to step up and save the card on late notice. That made sense in that context. But with this being a fight with, them booked on the Ultimate Fighter as coaches, it really makes no sense. And rankings-wise, it doesn't make sense. I think like you guys had alluded to, it only makes sense when you're talking about dollar figures. And, that's kind of unfortunate. Of course, the UFC wants to be a profitable business, but at the same time, that's just not the best way to do it in sports. I mean, we have in your NFL and your Major League Baseball, there's clearly defined ways to get to the championships, and in the UFC, like Chris has said, it's very much not that way. There is no clearly defined way to the championship. You have guys who debut in their title shots, and you have guys in their second fight, Anderson Silva getting title shots. So, not a big fan of this move personally.
Yep, definitely. Actually, I have a couple Dana White quotes locked and loaded, ready to go after what you said. The first one was specific about Dan Henderson. What he said was, I don't know about Dan, that's the thing. We were talking about Dan Henderson, trying to get him to fight after this injury. They said it was only going to be a few weeks, and he had to stay off it, but then a few weeks later, his knee wasn't ready. We had to pull the trigger and make decisions around here, and if guys aren't ready to fight, I don't even know if Dan would do the Ultimate Fighter. It's a lot trickier than that. Getting shit done around here is a lot harder than it looks. And then he later went on to further talk about why some other guys didn't get a chance. And what he said was sort of along the same lines of what he's been saying the last month, that he's extremely disappointed that a lot of these guys refused to fight Jon Jones at UFC 151 and led to it getting canceled. He said, quote, I've said this before and I'll say it again, Dan Henderson had the opportunity to fight and he got injured. Now Jones is injured. Every one of these guys that are bitching about a title fight now were offered a fight and they turned it down. They refused to fight Jon Jones. And now they're bummed out that Chael accepted a fight on 8 days' notice. These guys will do this. They'll fight and we'll have an absolute number one contender when Jones comes back. Do you all think there's any truth to what White's saying, basically that you had your chance? I don't know if truth is the right word, but do you agree with Dana White saying like you had your chance and you turned it down, and now the one guy who offered to take the fight on 8 days' notice is going to get the title shot? We'll go in the same order. I'll start with Ray.
Do you know what? I can see where he's coming from. At the end of the day, Dana White is a promoter. Dana White wants to do the best he can with what he's got when it comes to his fights. You know, we've already seen Jones versus Shogun, and let's be honest with you, it was not a competitive fight. Jones versus Machida was a competitive fight, and Machida had the chance to fight, and like Dana said, he said no to the fight because it was too short of a notice. And then that's why in the end Vitor Belfort stepped up, which, we're harping on about the Chael Sonnen fight. Surely Chael Sonnen is more worthy of a title shot than what Vitor Belfort was. That's another thing to think about. Obviously, Dan Henderson was going to fight, but of course he got injured. Obviously, that's not something that can be helped, which what led to the whole thing of Jon Jones stepping away and not taking Chael Sonnen. So yeah, at the end of the day, when push came to shove, Chael Sonnen stepped up and said, "I'll take the fight." He even said he'd give the money to either charity or to Jon Jones, but he even said he'd do it. So why shouldn't if you do a good job at work, you get rewarded? Why shouldn't Chael Sonnen get rewarded for at the end of the day, he put himself out there. So yeah, I can see exactly where Dana White's coming from. And like I said before, Chael Sonnen can promote anything because he is that good and he is exciting to watch. He talks the talk. He's got the old WWE kind of persona. I personally am looking forward to watching him as coach because he's a brilliant character. He's an amazing wrestler. So he's got a lot of the young kids have got a lot. Will learn a lot from him. And I can't see the fight, regardless of whether people think he's worthy of the fight or not.
You bring up yet another interesting take on it. Me personally, I don't really mind it too much, but here's the deal. Chael Sonnen is the most interesting man in mixed martial arts, bar none. He could talk way out of a corner in a concentration camp, dude. He'd end up on the other side of that gate with the rifle and just, would bone out. Like, that guy can literally run circles around people. He's incredible, and I look up to him, in that respect, but the UFC is teetering on a line. Do you want to be entertainment or do you want to be a sport? Right now, they're on that line. They're either going to go the boxing route where the fights that should happen don't, just for entertainment's sake, or they're going to become a sport, and there will be a clear-cut way to know what to do to win, because all these guys get pissed off because they do what they think they need to do to get higher up, and sometimes it doesn't go where they want it to go. So I think the UFC really needs to figure out, I mean, yes, they're a company. They need to make money, but at what price?
Yeah, very well said, Chris. This is just one of those things where perhaps there is some merit to what Dana White's saying. I don't doubt that there is. I mean, at this point, Jon Jones has gone through pretty much the upper echelon of the light heavyweight division, both on his way to the title and in his title defenses. So there really are only so many matchups to be made before we start talking about rematches. Everybody wants to see Machida versus Jones too, just because that was probably the most competitive fight Jon Jones has been in his career. So at this point, I can see how they would insert Chael Sonnen, just because, a guy like himself, who we mentioned is just a great performer on the microphone, and he puts on, obviously, a good fight in the octagon. But it would make more sense to put him in there as opposed to a Glover Teixeira who only has 2 fights and may not be a very well-known commodity and may not be able to sell as many pay-per-views. I'm sincerely hoping, though, that with the sport and the matchmaking the way it is, I really hope that they continue their shift towards being on free TV and moving away from the pay-per-view model. And I hope that in doing that, they'll be able to go to more of a purely ranked fight system where we have guys fighting for true contendership, as opposed to just getting the biggest fight matchups as we seem to be getting right now.
Definitely, I agree with most all that. Just about 100%. I'm looking now at a list of Ultimate Fighter coaches. It's been a while since you've had 2 light heavyweight coaches, or even have light heavyweight contenders. As far as having fighters on who are light heavyweights, the last time we had a 205-pound division wasn't. It was actually all the way back in 2008. Team Nogueira versus Team Mir. In that season, we saw Bader win and Vinny Magalhães come in second. As far as I think, Patrick, you're reverbing a little bit there. And as far as coaching, the last time we actually had 2 in a row, we had Rampage and Rashad, and the following season was Liddell Franklin, and that was late 2009, beginning of 2010. Since then, we've had 7 seasons: the GSP season, the Lesnar season, the Bisping season, the Cruz season, the Belfort season, the Carwin season, the Smashes. We've really kind of had a lack of 205-pound opponents. And I think it was about time that they bring in 205-pound coaches or contenders, because the light heavyweights really are some of the most exciting fighters in the division. But something that I sort of wanted to steer the conversation towards, kind of away from the actual legitimacy of this, which I sort of agree with all of you. Rarely do I look more forward to the build-up of a fight than I do the actual fight. I mean, even Sonnen and Silva, which had the best build-up in the world, I was more interested in seeing what was going to go down in the ring. I think most fans think that Jones is going to come out of this fight better than Sonnen is, and is looking more forward to the build-up. And an example of that was their UFC media conference call. I don't know if any of you listened to it. If any of you listeners haven't listened to it yet, just look up Jones Sonnen conference call on YouTube. You can probably find it. Extremely entertaining. Lots of back and forth. If I was to go over every highlight of it, it would literally take me about 15 or 20 minutes. There was a lot of stuff going on. But one thing that sort of came up was the topic of TRT. Actually, my favorite highlight of the entire conference call was when Sonnen was telling Jones, talking to Jones after someone asked him a question. He has said, Jon Jones, I'm gonna be in the best shape than anyone you've ever fought in your life. And Jones kind of quickly came back with on TRT or off TRT. And just as quickly, Chael responds back, on TRT. Next question. Which was an amazing response. Obviously, he did get a medical exemption to use testosterone replacement therapy in his last fight against Anderson Silva. But my question to you all, which, I really see both sides of it, and myself, I'm not really made up on it, because arguing for TRT, a lot of these guys, most of these guys on TRT are on TRT because they did steroids, plain and simple. But, some of them, I think Keith Kaiser put the number at 1 in 500, actually have a legitimate testosterone replacement problem where they do really need a medical replacement therapy, not just to fight, but to live life day to day.
Just one pistol.
Yeah, and ball. Yeah, but kind of arguing both sides for it. All right, if you let guys get TRT, that just opens the door, A, to letting you take steroids earlier in your career, and B, like Jones brought up during the conference call, he didn't really think it was fair that, Jones is young, yet he has to fight all these older guys who are taking a drug to simulate that youth. But on the other side, if you're arguing against TRT, you're kind of saying, all right, well, if you took steroids before, you shouldn't have the opportunity to compete ever. Because if you take steroids, scientifically, your body isn't going to naturally produce the kind of testosterone you need to compete in a hand-to-hand combat sport like the UFC. And I sort of wanted to hear what your guys' opinion were on TRT replacement and whether fighters should be able to get those medical exemptions. I'll start off with you, P. Money.
Yeah, thank you, Jake. As far as TRT goes, it seems to be the really in thing right now. Kind of like getting your medical marijuana card in California was kind of the in thing. You can get it for just about anything, and that almost seems to be what it's like these days, especially ever since Chael Sonnen popped dirty for his post-fight urine test with Anderson Silva. Since then, we just hear about all different kinds of fighters getting testosterone replacement therapy and getting therapeutic use exemptions. Guys like Todd Duffy, who's in his mid to late 20s. We also hear that Dan Henderson had been on it for years and had been staying inside the commission's set regulated levels. Well, the thing with that is that the Nevada State Athletic Commission, as it is, they allow a 6-to-1 testosterone to epitestosterone ratio, when apparently the normal male average is 1-to-1 testosterone to epitestosterone ratio. So they're allowing up to theoretically 6 times the testosterone level that a normal adult male would have. So that right there, it's almost like if you're not tested at a 6-to-1 ratio, get on that TRT because you're testosterone deficient, and that's the accepted level with the Nevada State Athletic Commission. So, it's like, hey, get on that level. If you're not going to get juiced out to that, at least that 6-to-1 ratio maximum, then you're just cheating yourself, because you don't know if the guy standing across the octagon from you is at that 6-to-1 level. And even as artificial as it may be, that's what they're allowing right now. So whether or not Chael Sonnen should get it, whether or not it's something he truly medically needs, and he's been on forever, I'm not a doctor, I can't say, but it really does open that Pandora's box going forward.
Great point. Ultimately, there's so many aspects to fighting. There is training, there's spirit, there's mindset, there's technique, there's natural gift, and then you have this physical part where if you take a certain substance, it may help you in certain regards. Are you guys there? Everyone there?
Yeah, we're there.
Okay, sorry, Patrick dropped out. My bad. I just heard the blink. We're like a call in.
Blink.
So I think that to get pissed off at guys taking substances, I can understand the argument for it. I don't give a shit what you put in your body, because there's been plenty of times where guys come in juiced to the gills in the early days and get their asses kicked by smaller guys who just have better technique. So I really couldn't give two shits what you put in your body. You can actually go down to a local GNC and they're going to have, Nas Gorilla Fuck or whatever it's called. And it's going to have...
It's actually what it's called.
Yeah, that's what it's called. and they're going to have, they're going to have substances in there which are one molecule off from steroids, but because of that, it's legal. You're kidding yourself if you think that, just about everyone out there isn't on something, whether it's steroids, PEDs, just in general. I don't care what you put in your body. It's not an end-all, be-all where all of a sudden you're some super monster with it. So I don't get about it. I really couldn't give two shits what they do with their body, and I don't think ultimately it has any repercussions in the octagon.
I have to admit, I've always been. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. I was just leading you in there gracefully.
I've always been a little bit ignorant to TRT. I've never really understood what it is. I've never heard of it until recently. And I've never really understood how it helps somebody, how the extra hormones help somebody. I've just never really been able to wrap my head around it. But what I wanted to pick up on really was the point that Chris made, which is about, the fighters putting all kinds of stuff into their body. And I've got quite an interesting little story here, which I think is interesting anyway.
Yes.
And a few years ago, my cousin got to corner quite a well-known fighter. He actually fought in the UFC. And worked his way up and fought for a title in the UFC, and then he got cut. Now my cousin didn't corner him for the title fight, but he trained him for that. But he cornered him for a fight afterwards, and he actually said to me that in the changing rooms before he was drug tested, there was actually people in the changing rooms that were injecting clean piss into his bladder, so that when he pissed, he would pass the drug test.
Yeah, oil change. Yep.
Yeah, and I thought that was mental. So they're
MMA mental.
MMA mental. There's always people that are going to be out there that are going to take advantage of the system. I just thought, because I didn't know much about TRT, I thought I'd deliver that story instead.
Jesus Christ, that's crazy. It kind of makes me want to give myself oil change with like red Kool-Aid and like freak someone out. Like, hey, would you pull over on the side of the road? I gotta take a piss, and then start peeing. Like,
Hey, can you name drop Ray? Can you name drop that fighter?
Shall I name drop him?
Name drop his ass.
Right, he fought for the UFC heavyweight title. I'll give clues and you'll guess it.
Yes.
He fought for the UFC heavyweight title.
Brock Lesnar.
He lost by unanimous decision.
Tim Sylvia?
He lost to Tim Sylvia.
Ooh.
He also fought at light heavyweight in the UFC.
Whoa.
Jeff Monson?
Oh, Brandon Vera.
That's it. You've got it. The first one.
Jeff Monson? Jeff Monson. Yeah. Wow.
Oh, that's a surprise looking at that dude.
Yeah.
Now Monson's probably going to rape us and kill us all in our sleep tonight. Thank you, Ray.
He's an anarchist, isn't he? He's a dangerous man, and he'll choke you.
Yeah, definitely. I've actually heard specific steroid allegations be brought up against him, and a lot of these guys, the one thing that really hurts them is you get popped one time and you've got to carry that stigma the rest of your entire career. It was actually Franklin said he was thinking about taking it before his upcoming fight against Kung Lee. And told the press that eventually he opted against trying to get a medical exemption just because the fans responded so negatively. And I really hope we start seeing that, because it is really an extremely slippery slope. 1 second you're allowing TRT exemptions, the next second you're allowing a lot more. Patrick?
Yeah, and I would also just like to clarify that Of course, the story we had heard from Ray, these are all allegations, not necessarily confirmed reports. Allegedly, reportedly. Just wanted to clear that up, and legal CYA got to cover our asses.
Allegedly, this didn't definitely
reportedly.
happen. This reportedly happened, but
reportedly, absolutely true.
Reportedly, 100% fact.
You can't be sure though. Can't confirm.
It's definitely one of the most talked about topics now in MMA, and something you'll probably hear us talk about as more and more stories come out with different fighters and different kind of angles to look at this. But we'll move on, because we really could talk about Jon Jones and Chael Sonnen all fucking day. It's a pretty intriguing matchup, just looking at all forms of it. Really looking forward to seeing both coach the Ultimate Fighter. But Chael Sonnen was originally slated to face Forrest Griffin at UFC 155 at the end of this December, and it looks like Phil Davis is going to replace Chael Sonnen. Griffin has, in my opinion, a much tougher task on his hand now, fighting Phil Davis instead of Chael Sonnen. I think that Davis is, really, really shown how technical he is on the ground recently. And I'm not exactly sure. I haven't looked at their reaches and there's who necessarily has the size advantage. I'm guessing it's going to go to Forrest just because he's such a towering light heavyweight. But what are your guys' thoughts on this Griffin Davis matchup, Ray?
I agree. I think this is a tougher match. I think Sonnen Griffin would have been a good match, and I think it would have been a very close match. But I think we've all seen what Sonnen's weakness is. And we all know that Forrest Griffin is more than capable of submitting somebody off his back. And I could have seen him doing that against Chael Sonnen. I wouldn't have been surprised if he had done. But it's very, very hard to see how Forrest Griffin can beat Phil Davis, in my opinion. I mean, I don't think Phil Davis is going to want to keep the fight standing. He's shown that in his last fight against Wagner Prado. As soon as he gets a chance, he's going to take Griffin down. I think he's got it in him to be able to keep Griffin down. As far as I'm aware, I can't remember a time ever that Forrest Griffin's been submitted, or certainly hasn't recently. So I think Griffin will be able to avoid submissions, but I just see Davis controlling him for 15 minutes, and I think it'll be quite exciting to watch. I think there'll be a lot of jockeying for position, and Griffin will constantly be active, but I just think Davis will win. Will just keep getting him down. If Griffin gets back, we'll take him back down again, and we'll win a 15-minute decision.
Very astute breakdown, sir. I just wanted to ask you something. Did you know that Forrest Griffin actually did submit Chael Sonnen early in his career by triangle choke?
There you go. It doesn't surprise me. No, I have seen that before, but it wasn't in my mind. But it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I actually am on the opposite hand. Just going back real quick to that Griffin Chael fight. I think that Griffin is at the tail end of his career. He's been finished so many times and has looked less than willing to. Just mentally, it looks like he's not in it. I thought Chael Sonnen was going to absolutely steamroll Forrest Griffin, after that loss to Anderson, new division, very powerful top game guy. I think he would have just steamrolled him for 15 minutes. So that was my take on that. As far as Griffin Davis, it's even worse for Griffin because now you've got Phil Davis, a bigger guy with, not as good cardio, but definitely some more powerful wrestling, I think. So I've got Davis in this. He's probably not going to finish him, but if he does, I say he's got a third-round finish.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good to me. I think Phil Davis, he seems to be a slow starter, if you will. He feels out. He's got a long feeling out process. Most of his subs come round two, it seems like. I know the Tim Boach submission was second round, as was his submission win over Alexander Gustafsson. As far as this fight for Forrest Griffin, it is a very similar fight to the Chael Sonnen fight. Phil Davis just presents a different set of problems. He's a little bit bigger. He's got the huge lats. He's got a crazy wingspan. I would imagine he's got a very similar height and reach to Forrest. I do think this is a winnable fight for Forrest. I think, if Forrest Griffin comes in good shape, I mean, we saw Forrest Griffin take out Shogun Rua when he was ranked at the top of his game. We saw him beat Quentin Jackson to earn the UFC light heavyweight title after Quentin had just unified the Pride and UFC light heavyweight belts. So he's done his fair share of work inside the octagon, and in the Rashad Evans fight, he was actually owning in that fight. He was doing really well. He was just bringing it to Rashad in every facet of the game until about midway through the third round. He got tagged on the button, and we all know what happened from there. It just depends on if Forrest really has the motivation left, if he has that desire and that hunger to do well, because we know that Phil Davis, he's a young guy on the rise, and he's looking to make his name and get that career-defining victory. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Forrest comes into this fight, but I think it's one he can take if everything between the ears is good.
Yeah, and actually going to your point, I looked it up, and Phil Davis is an inch shorter than Forrest Griffin, but he's got a 2-inch reach advantage on Forrest Griffin. Another thing, you were saying Griffin had fought Sonnen before. I hadn't really thought about it, but if Griffin and Sonnen would have fought one another, it would have been the 4th fight in 5 fights that Forrest Griffin had a rematch fight. He had Tito Ortiz the second time he fought him. Franklin was the only non-rematch. Then he had a rematch against Mauricio Rua, a trilogy fight against Tito Ortiz, and this was going to be a rematch against Chael Sonnen. So kind of
stale milk.
Kind of cool to see him fight somebody who he hasn't fought before, but I definitely agree. Kind of their one shared opponent who I'm looking at, Rashad Evans, was able to finish Forrest Griffin in the 3rd round, while Phil Davis brought him 25 minutes. So at least by your normal MMA math standards, I would say that Phil Davis would get the advantage there. And kind of just thinking about it, Forrest, the way he's won the last few fights that he has won is just using his size advantage and his reach advantage against guys like Franklin and Ortiz. He was a lot quicker than Tito was. Actually, kind of crazy to think Forrest is only 5 years older than Phil Davis. You think of Forrest as being this veteran, which he by all means is, but dude's only 33. Won the light heavyweight championship 4 years ago when he was 29. So, one of these guys who you think is a little bit older because he's been in the UFC for so long, but really still has a lot of spryness and youth to him. But I do think Phil Davis is he and Jones are the future of the 205-pound division, and I do think Griffin will rebound once he gets matched up against somebody a little more favorable than Phil Davis. But just like all of you guys, I give the edge to Phil Davis on that one. Any you guys have any more thoughts on the whole Jones Sonnen, Griffin Davis situation there at light heavyweight before we move on to guess that tweet? Chris, if it's something stupid, Chris, if it's something stupid, I'm literally going to get on a flight and I'm going to fly to California and punch you in the dick.
I don't think it's stupid. It was a joke. I guess it's a joke. Have you guys seen
Go
Shaun
ahead.
of the Dead?
All right, moving on to guess that tweet. This week, Patrick has the tweets going on, and the order of guessing is going to be Chris, then me, then Ray. So you have all of your tweets together, man.
Oh, we got a good batch lined up, and hopefully a couple curveballs in there. So we'll see how this game goes.
All right, let us do it, my friend.
All right.
It's all you.
Well, the first tweet we got this week. Well, I'm going to get someone gangster in my training camp, like Ice-T. I'm going to have him help me with my stare down.
Ooh.
What was that? Eric Koch, Phil Davis, Cub Swanson, or Alexander Gustafsson? Chris?
Can you read the guys one more time? Just read them. I gotta let that soak in. One more.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, first choice is Eric Koch. Then we've got Phil Davis, Cub Swanson, and Alexander Gustafsson.
I'm gonna go Cub Swanson.
He used iced tea, so I'm gonna get racist with it. I'm gonna go with Phil Davis. Ray?
I've spoken with Eric Koch, and know a lot of people he trains with, and we've become good friends with one of his training partners. I'm going to say Eric Koch.
Okay, and let's get a drum roll. Jake is correct with Phil Davis.
It pays to be racist, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah.
Oh, setting a terrible precedent for Guess That tweet this week. All right.
Racism.
Deplorable. All right. Let's go with our second tweet here. Everyone unfollow Natasha Wicks. She has no friends. Hilarious, mean-spirited tweet, just like we like. And was that sent by Josh Koscheck, Sean McCorkle, Danny Castillo, and Mike Pierce.
So it's Josh Koscheck, McCorkle, Castillo, and Pierce?
That is correct.
Pierce is boring. Castillo is like this kind of greasy alpha male type. That might be him. Koscheck, I think Koscheck is the kind of the feeder carrot that you would lead a horse with. So, but McCorkle, man, he just doesn't really tweet about stuff like that anymore. Castillo or Koscheck, they're kind of one and the same, huh?
You probably could have lead a horse to hay just with Josh Koscheck. He would follow that bright head of hair.
Yeah, you could lead Ariane Celeste or Chandela with Josh Koscheck. That's true.
Heyo.
I'm gonna say I'm gonna say Koss.
Oh, I'm actually between Mike Pierce and Koss. I actually heard Pierce on Joe Show Radio. He has been pretty entertaining, but I feel like Koss is just trying to get that booty, son. So, why not? I will agree with my MMA podcast brethren and go with Josh Koscheck.
I'm going to go for Sean McCorkle.
Okay. And the winner is... Nobody. It was Mike Pierce.
Oh, I should have gone with my gut instincts there. Son of a bitch.
Yep. That was one of those.
I do not have good gut instincts for Twitter games.
All right, so here's our next tweet. This one's a real winner. Starting playing League of Legends. I hate being new to the games, but soon enough, I will know all the heroes and items. At League of Legends. Hashtag League of Legends. Now, was that...
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, was that sent out by Joe Lozon, Uriah Faber, Nick Lentz, or Jamie Varner? And Chris?
Ooh. Okay, well, I know that Lozon is a console player. He's touted as playing Call of Duty. Faber... I don't think Faber plays video games ever.
Faber just does crunches all day. That's all he does.
Yeah, just all day, dude. All day. He does crunches into the mirror, so when he's at the top of the crunch, he can just stare himself in the eyes. Yeah. I'm gonna say, then it's Nick Lentz and Varner, right?
That's correct.
I'm gonna go with Lentz.
Okay. That sounds like a endorsement tweet. I don't know if I've ever been so pumped to play something. I'm like, hey guys, I really like FIFA. I'm gonna play it now. FIFA at FIFA hashtag FIFA. And I feel like Uriah Faber has been endorsing every product known to man recently, whether it's K-Swiss, Forum Athletics. He was touting a book for a while. So just based on the fact that I think that's a endorsement tweet, I will go with the California kid.
I'm going to base my...
Who you got in this one?
I'm going to base my pick on an interview I heard on MMA at Work with Josh and Tim. And I remember them interviewing Nick, and he was definitely a gamer. So I'm going to go for Nick Lentz.
All right, let's get the drum roll going. And Ray and Chris on the board with 1 point apiece.
We're all level, baby.
Tied up.
Man, this shit's got real, son.
Oh, damn.
Don't count out MMA Mental yet, boys.
I'm definitely counting you out.
Yeah, I am too, Ray. You and P-Money can go fuck yourselves.
It's in the back.
Well, I did give Ray... I gave Ray all the answers, yes. So,
hey, you know what's in the bag, Ray? Your little dick.
Heyo.
All right, let's keep it civil. All right, tweet number 4.
Fuck you, Ray. Fuck you.
Very good. Okay, I just reached level 2 of the Jet Setter badge on at Foursquare. I've checked in at 5 different airports. Was this Alan Belcher, Stefan Struve, BJ Penn, or Dennis Seaver? Chris?
Can you read that again, please?
Yes. I just reached level 2 of the Jet Setter badge on at Foursquare. I've checked in at 5 different airports. And I'll give you the fighters again. That's
please.
Alan Belcher, Stefan Struve, BJ Penn, or Dennis Seaver?
That is definitely a European thing. It's between Seaver and Struve. I don't think Seaver's too active on Twitter. I'm going to go with Stefan Struve.
Yeah, it definitely does sound like a Euro thing. I feel like European people travel around a lot more than Americans do. But actually, someone, speaking of endorsements, I know he's been a lot more active recently, especially, rising up to a talent. So I'm gonna say fuck it. I'm gonna go with Alan Belcher on this one.
See, I think traveling is definitely a European thing, but I think that Europeans will be hitting a lot more airports than 5. So that's why I think it's going to be an American, and I think it's going to be Alan Belcher as well.
All right, and the winner is Ray and Jay.
No!
So that 3-way tie is now a 2-way tie.
We do 5 airports in one day in Europe.
Do we have 1 or 2 more tweets left?
We've got one more, and we've got a bonus tie-breaking tweet.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
We won't need that. I'll ask Jake.
Ray, I will cut you.
Guys, I'm not even out of this yet. If you guys miss,
Chris, you are non-existent. We didn't even know you were still on the call, mate.
Hey guys,
he's gone.
Who's that in the background making that noise?
Some Momo, cocksucker.
Hey. All right, guys. This is it. This is for all the marbles. See? I got this final tweet here. So let's see if the tiebreaker is going to be necessary. Okay. We can start a rap battle crew. And next time somebody does that, we'll jump out and go cool crush they ass. Was it Miguel Torres, Rashad Evans, Pat Barry, or Stipe Miocic? Chris?
That's a mind bender.
It really is.
Miguel Torres, Rashad Evans. Who's the third one?
Pat Barry.
Pat Barry. Okay, those are all like people who are very active and funny on Twitter. Then you threw in the red herring. I'm going Stipe Miocic.
Oh shit! When you said
who you got?
When you said Miguel Torres, I was like, oh, it's gotta be him because he tweets ridiculous shit all the time. And then you threw out Pat Barry. He also tweets ridiculous shit all the time. So I'm literally going to base this on who I would rather start a rap battle crew with out of Miguel Torres and Pat Barry. I feel like Torres would get us disqualified for rapping about rape vans. So, fuck it, I'll go with Pat Barry.
Right, I was going to go for Pat Barry, but I just feel that's a cop out, and I don't want to follow Jake because I know we're head to head. So I'm going to go for Miguel Torres.
All right, and the winner is Pat Barry.
Gonna stick my dick in a mustard bottle now.
Eat our dicks.
Oh,
That's awesome. That is a win for the MMA Podcast, tying it up at 2 between MMA Mental and the MMA Podcast.
Can we do the bonus one just for the sake of?
Yeah, let's do the bonus.
Fuck it.
all right.
This is for all the marbles.
All right. Let me go to my notepad here. Okay, we've got one. I'm seriously thinking of starting an anti-bullying group that supports fathers with teenage daughters and the bullying we take from them. Was that A, Matt Hughes? Was that B, Dan Hardy? Was that C, Joey Beltran? Or D, Dennis Hallman?
I'm going Beltran.
I think we had a tweet earlier about Hughes talking about his daughters or some shit, so just based off of that, I don't know if Hardy has kids. Hallman's kind of old, he probably has kids, but yeah, Hughes, I think it was either when I went or when Ray collected questions, we had a question about his daughters, so yeah, I'll just say Matt Hughes, why not? I already won this shit, so it don't even matter, son.
Straight away, I'm thinking it won't be Dan Hardy because I just don't. Even if he's got kids, which I don't think he has, I don't think he'd have a teenager. But my first instinct was Joey Beltran. I know he's a family man. I could imagine him saying something like that.
All right, and the correct answer was Joey Beltran.
Oh, it feels so good to get 2 points.
If only that was the 5th tweet instead of the 6th tweet.
Oh,
Yes.
It's like getting 5 numbers in the bonus ball instead of the 6 number.
Yep, exactly. So just to remind everybody who gives a shit and listens, that puts me at 2 because I'm the smartest person ever to live. Jake Walters,
Or you
that's me.
spend too much time on Twitter.
It's probably being the smartest person in the world. I do spend probably too much time on Twitter, but that probably has nothing to do with it. I actually didn't see any of these tweets before. I kind of felt like I was cheating with that Crookshank one last week when he was talking about driving behind speeders. But yeah, I have 2. Ray has 1. P Money has 1, and Chris will try and get you a win on behalf of the MMA Podcast next week.
Just give me one. Just give me one.
Just give it.
I don't want to have to work for it. Just give it. Give it to me.
You've got 2 team wins, though. That's what counts. The
That's
team
true.
No, he doesn't. He still doesn't get a
Hey,
point.
I'm a better co-host than Patrick. What a loser.
Hey, I doubt that very much.
That was an amazing comeback. But Ray, did you want to follow up with those initials on our new Fightbusters segment where you talked about jerking some guy off after you cleaned your feet?
Yeah, but I'm going to give out the initials, and I want if you can work it out, I want you to say the answers. If not, I won't give out the answers till next week. Okay, so the first clue. Just remind people of what this is. So I'm going to give out a clue. So break up a fighter's name and give out a clue, and then the clues will fit the name. But you have to think a little bit outside the box. So I'll give you an example. I could say that Barbie's best friend holds a rock, and the initials would be KS, and you break it up. Barbie's best friend is Ken, and holding the rock, another word for rock, stone, you've got Ken Stone. So that's just to give you an idea of my mind, how I'm thinking. Okay, so the first clue is the supporter of a backwards man, and the initials are NP. So N for November, P for Papa. Okay? The second clue is a way to pay in Africa, and the clues are C for Charlie and K for Kilo. And the third clue, which I know is the clue everyone loves, wipe your feet, then eat the meat, or you might be sick. And the clue is, the initials are M for mother and H for hotel. So, have you 3 got a clue on any of them? Those initials?
Ray, I don't. And I'm going to actually go back, listen to this as soon as it's posted, and I'm going to turn my room into a fucking, like, I don't know, what would you call it? Like a murder scene, where a murder happened. I'm going to have, like, strings. I'm going to have, papers everywhere. I'm just going to be connecting clues and dots. I probably won't get it, but I'll try.
I think I may have an idea for the first one, but numbers 2 and 3 have me completely stumped.
Right. You want to give out number 1 if you think you know it, and I'll let you know if you're right.
Alright, is number 1 Nam Fan?
Yes. So
fuck yeah!
The word for supporter is fan. So the supporter of a backwards man. Nam.
Oh, I was actually thinking, like, what does Nam have anything to do with a backwards man? But yeah, man backwards Nam. Holy shit! I'm reigning supreme.
Yeah, Nam. Calling him a backwards man. I thought that was kind of racist, but whatever.
Reaching new lows on the show.
Yeah. So do you like my way of thinking then?
Yeah, that was.
I don't know if I like it.
That was a really good one.
Very cryptic.
Has anyone got a clue for number 2 or number 3?
No, and no one guess. Keep them for next week. I'm gonna smoke you fools, dude. I'm gonna lock myself in this room. I'm gonna piss in jars. It's on.
Bring it on.
Come in with the milk. Come in with the milk.
Right. Go on then. Well, if anyone's got the answer, you can ring in on the number. If you're listening after the show, you can email me mmamental@hotmail.com, or you can tweet me at mmamental, and if you get them right, I'll tell you.
Yeah, if you have any clue, the number is 213-457-3380. Clue 2 is like how to pay black people. Clue 3 is how to jerk a dude off with like your feet or something.
Clue 2, a way to pay in Africa, initials CK. Clue 3, wipe your feet, then eat the meat, or you might be sick. The initials are MH.
MH, yeah. If
I'm literally gonna walk on a dirty floor, take my hand on it, rub it on the bottom of my foot, jerk off, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you can't, like, I mean, we are absolute.
The floor gets dirtier, that's what happens.
We have absolute child brains. If you even say the word meat, we're gonna turn it into something about masturbation. You be sure of that. Jesus Christ.
Well done on getting Nampa.
Yeah, thank you. I was just strictly thinking NP, and I don't know why, but Nam Fan popped in my head, so go me. I guess let's.
I have respect for that, by the way.
Let's swiftly go from foot fetishes to Bellator. What a transition that was, by the way, you guys. Eddie Alvarez, this fight actually happened the same weekend as UFC 153, but we were just way too busy breaking down those fights to even get to it. Easily the most compelling fight of this season of Bellator, maybe even one of the best fights of the entire year. Back and forth, Eddie Alvarez ends up winning at the end of the first round via TKO. Actually, Chris, you broke this down on our podcast last Wednesday, the MMA Podcast, and you did a superb job. So if you were down and wanted to break down that fight again for us, I'd be more than willing to hear you break it down again.
Yeah, I would love nothing more. Eddie Alvarez is one of the greatest lightweights out there. Actually, I think the greatest lightweight. I would put him over Gilbert Melendez. I think Melendez has faced stiffer competition, but didn't do as well as Eddie has against the guys he's fought. I mean, Eddie is a very technically sound boxer with excellent wrestling. He's got killer instinct. I mean, he beat the absolute shit out of Roger Huerta, Josh Neer, and also Pat Curran, wait, not Pat Curran. Wait. Shit.
Yeah,
was it Pat? Okay, yeah, Pat Curran, who is looking fantastic these days at a lesser weight. So Eddie, has said famously on the MMA Hour, he's going to go where the money is. He has a family to support. He has daughters. He has a wife, and that's what's kept him out of the UFC, because the UFC tends to lowball guys, out there, unless it's some kind of huge deal. Eddie Alvarez isn't a big name to your casual fan. He's a big name to the hardcores, but they haven't picked him up yet. So, cut to this fight. Patricky Pitbull is an absolute monster. That guy has done scary things. You know, he's knocked out. I think it was Toby Amato with a flying knee. Has looked absolutely sensational in most of his fights. And Eddie went in there and they went back and forth. They were throwing combos, and Eddie was using this beautiful evasive head movement. You know, ducking left, ducking right, angling and circling, and pretty much the perfect way to fight an aggressive Muay Thai striker like Patricky Pitbull. So he was ducking in, ducking left, hits Pitbull with I think it was a straight right hand or an overhand right, and Pitbull fell down to the ground. I thought it was over. Eddie rushed in, hit him with a few shots. They reset, and Patricky just started blasting punches left and right at him. I'm like, oh shit, this is a fight. This guy is pissed off. Like, I was legitimately kind of concerned for my own life watching that fight. I was like, oh my God. So he blasts back at him, and they kind of get up against the cage. He fakes a jab and then throws this beautiful right high kick. Hits Patricky perfectly on the face at 4:54 in the first round. Follows it up with, I think, 1 or 2 more punches. I think it was 1, and then he stood up. He's like, okay, he's done. Dana White has said recently that he wants to sign the guy, or at least I got to talk to Eddie. I think he's out of his mind if he doesn't pick Eddie Alvarez up for the division.
Yeah, I obviously watched the fight as well. I mean, for a one-round fight, it was just non-stop action. It was such a good fight. I mean, obviously we had Alvarez rock Patrici early on, and Patrici rocked Alvarez back. But the finish, the head kick, just for me, it just seemed to come out of nowhere. I just did not see it coming at all. And obviously, once he'd caught the head kick, he was just instantly out. But yeah, I mean, I'd like to see Alvarez in the UFC. I don't know if I quite agree. I don't know what you said about him being number one. I don't know if you were trying to say he was number one outside the UFC.
Yes.
Or number
at lightweight. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I agree with that, because obviously I watched the Michael Chandler fight, and I always think to be the man, you've got to beat the man. And Michael Chandler did that. So for me, Michael Chandler has got more fight to be number one over Alvarez, over Melendez than what Alvarez is. But obviously Melendez has won, but has not looked great. But I mean, I think Josh Thompson's someone you can't count out either. I think for me, those 4 guys are the 4 best lightweights outside the UFC. And the sooner we see all 4 of them in the UFC, the better. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, and I'd certainly agree with that. Those are definitely 4 of the top 155-pounders not fighting under the UFC banner right now. And as for this fight, I'm a huge fan of the Pitbull brothers, Patricky and Patricio. Obviously, anyone with a name derivative of Patrick, I'm going to support. And Eddie Alvarez, he's a very exciting fighter. You know, you go back to his fights at Dream with Joachim Hansen. He's just had a lot of great fights in the past, and this definitely was a one-round masterpiece. Definitely a candidate for a round of the year, if nothing else. Just a great back and forth fight. These guys were just winging bombs. Eddie Alvarez, he did look good. And my only thing with Alvarez, he seems to get rocked in just about every fight. He rarely ever loses a fight when he gets finished, but he does seem to get rocked a bit in spite of how good his boxing is. And of course, Alvarez rocked Patricky rocked Alvarez, and then, of course, play with a beautiful head kick. It was just quite a sight to be seen. And the way he knocked him out and the follow-up punches, it was just an emphatic finish of a very tough, tricky Pitbull. Definitely a good fight for Alvarez. I'd be very interested to see how he fares in the UFC. I'd be very surprised if he didn't go over there. I think there's a lot of good matchups over there. I'd like to see him maybe start slow, take on someone like a Melvin Guillard, and just kind of, I think that'd be a good litmus test to see where Eddie Alvarez is at as far as the UFC is concerned.
Yeah, and Eddie Alvarez, currently training out of the new-founded Black Zillions camp, really has looked a lot better since losing to Michael Chandler back last year. I was around this time last year, losing to Michael Chandler, 4th round by rear naked choke. has definitely fought more names than a Michael Chandler has. Chandler only has 10 fights under his belt, while Alvarez is 24-3. Actually, it was one of the best fights I've seen to date this year. You gotta love a fight where both guys at a point are in significant danger, and then one of them rallies back to win. Alvarez was a favorite in the fight, so I'm not really surprised that he was the one that ended up showing more fortitude and storming back. But my favorite part of the entire fight was after he wins, he jumps up on the cage, almost like a lot of fighters do when they win a fight. They jump up there and wave at the crowd. And Alvarez almost immediately sprints at the cage, jumps on top of the cage, jumps out of the cage, jumps down, and then just starts, when Jose Aldo did it, he sort of was running toward fans, giving them high fives and stuff. I don't know what the exact story is, but it looks like he was just trying to do something out of a Rocky movie, and he ran up almost the entire flight of stairs going up the lower section, fans trying to give him high fives and stuff, getting in his way. It was a sight to see for sure. Always love seeing fighters so pumped up that they gotta go jump out of the cage and do something crazy, assuming they won. You never like seeing a Forrest Griffin type retreat after a loss. But looking at Alvarez, I think most people are assuming that the UFC is going to offer him more money. Dana White even went as far to tweet at Eddie Alvarez right after the fight, said something along the lines of "awesome fight, we'll be talking soon, winky face," because his contract with Bellator is expired. As far as who he fights next in the UFC, I have two scenarios to thrown out there, which I've done a few times recently. We don't really know the future of Strikeforce, whether or not we're going to see a single Strikeforce card again, or if it's going to fold and be absorbed into the UFC. If Strikeforce does fold, I think it would be a dream match to see Eddie Alvarez take on a Gilbert Melendez, sort of like a winner take on outside of the UFC lightweight talent, winner take all. And the winner of that fight would probably be offered a title shot, or at least be a fight away from it. If Strikeforce is still kind of shaky, I would really love seeing him take on, looking at the top fighters in the current UFC lightweight division. Henderson's obviously going to fight Nate Diaz next. But after that, there's not really a set number one title contender. I would love seeing... I actually didn't know that. If Cerrone and Pettis are lined up to be the next title contender after Diaz versus Henderson, maybe see Eddie Alvarez fight the winner of Gray Maynard versus Joe Lauzon, and the winner of that would either have a title fight or be a fight away from it, maybe bring in Gilbert after that and put a matchup like that together. I know I'm talking two or three fights in a row together, but the possibilities are kind of endless and very exciting with Eddie Alvarez in the UFC lightweight division if he does get signed, which isn't if. Bellator has been known to sort of push the UFC on contracts, and if Eddie did indeed say he's going to go where the money is, you never know if Bjorn Rebney's going to pull a crazy stunt and offer him way more than he's worth, just to outbid Dana White, who has been a little critical of Redney of recent. They've kind of been going at it. It might be more of a ego move to spend more than Alvarez is worth just to outbid the UFC. But all in all, I think we'll see Alvarez in the UFC, and it'll be extremely exciting, especially for those hardcore fans who know the kind of quality of work he's put out in Bellator.
Yeah, and I'll go back to your opening point. You brought up Melendez versus Alvarez, and that fight was actually very close to being made. Strikeforce and Bellator had a mutual deal before they got bought out, I believe, where they were kind of exchanging fighters. I know that Strikeforce also had a deal with Dream, I think, or something like that. But basically what happened was they were supposed to make it, and then there was some kind of beef between Rebney and Scott Coker. I can't remember exactly why that never went into fruition, but it's kind of crazy to look at those two guys who are perpetually top 10, but not in the UFC. And I just want to go to a common opponent, Shinya Aoki. They both fought him, and Eddie fought him twice, and Melendez fought him once. The first time, Alvarez actually got knee barred. The second time, he knocked him out in 40 seconds. And then you look at Gilbert Melendez, who just basically out-wrestled Shinya for 5 minutes, or 5 rounds straight. So that's kind of an interesting matchup. I don't know where that fight would take place. I think it would be a barn burner. I definitely agree with that. As far as next fights for Eddie Alvarez, man, there's so many out there at lightweight. It's absolutely ridiculous. You could go, man, if you want to start him off slow, like you said, Melvin's coming off loss. There's Jim Miller. There's guys out there who are on decent streaks at lightweight, and I didn't really do my homework on that. I mean, I think Cerrone versus Pettis is getting up to be a number one contender against the winner of Benson and Diaz. So ultimately, with Eddie Alvarez, I think he's a fantastic product. Patrick brought up the point that he gets rocked in a lot of his fights. But hey, that's because he's putting his ass on the line. If you play it safe, you're going to have a John Fitch career, you know? And look at what happened when John Fitch stopped playing it safe. He looked fantastic out there. So more power to Eddie. I hope that they don't put him in there with a top 10. I think they give him a top 15, top 20. And then after that, he gets the number one contender fight. That's my call.
I'm going to put two calls out there. First of all, if he does Bellator, then obviously the next fight's got to be a winner of Chandler and Hall. I think, because clearly Eddie Alvarez is one of the best lightweights in the world, so there's no point. He doesn't need to go through a tournament again. I think if he's already proved his worth as a title contender. If he does sign with UFC, him versus Gilbert Melendez makes perfect sense. Obviously, as a number one contender fighter, I can see that happening. Or if they want to build him up, give him a top 20, top 15 guy. I would say a fighter on a good win streak, who is another super aggressive fighter, who would, I don't think he would beat Eddie Alvarez, but I think he would make Alvarez work for a win, would be Matt Wyman. I think that would be a good fight. So I'd put a call in for that one, Eddie Alvarez versus Matt Wyman.
Yeah, those are some great suggestions, you guys. Great point. Yeah, and like I said earlier, I'd like to see him fight Gillard if we're talking. If we were to put him against more of a top 10 opponent, I definitely see the winner of the Great Manian fight. That would be a good matchup for Eddie. Also, who knows? I know that Frankie Edgar was scheduled to move down to featherweight and fight Jose Aldo, but I would love to see Frankie Edgar take on Eddie Alvarez. I think that would just be I mean, who knows how to pay-per-view to get a lot of draws, but certain hardcore fans, I would imagine be received fairly well, and I don't think that would be boring by any stretch.
Yeah, you were cutting out a little bit there, but I could overall hear the points you were making and what you were saying. Jesus Christ, your reverb's up. You might want to turn me down. There we go. Yeah. Did you have another point to make about Alvarez before we move on, Chris?
I'm sorry, you broke up. What was that?
Did you have another point to make about Eddie Alvarez before we move on?
Oh, no. Move on, man. I already made it in my break. Next fight.
All right, cool. A fight that actually isn't going to happen for about a month. I believe the scheduled date is November 17th. And if I am coming across a little choppy, just let me know on the Skype chat. I want to make sure you guys hear me. Yeah, we have GSP versus Carlos Condit.
Ray, can you say something?
You there, Ray?
Ray?
Yeah, I'm fine. Jake?
Yeah.
All right, yeah,
That's why you host the call.
I think Chris is actually hosting this call, but
yeah, absolutely. We were talking right there about Eddie Alvarez.
Chris, you need to ring Patrick as well.
Okay, we'll do.
Technical difficulties.
We can get this thing shut down.
Yeah, here. Let's actually end the call. I'll keep on. I'll keep on talking. Let's go ahead and end this call. Ustream and iTunes should be picking me up well because Ustream is going from my computer, even though the Skype call isn't. So how about we all hang up, Chris? You call everyone and reestablish the call while I set up GSP versus Condit. People will still hear me, man. Don't worry. I'm coming through loud and clear for them. Just you guys aren't necessarily. I don't know if it's your internet or what, but Chris, if you would end the call and call everyone back. All right, they cannot hear me apparently. End the call. Call everyone back. I can't. I can't type in talk at the same time. I couldn't even think of the word talk. Wow. Anyway, we're done breaking down that Alvarez Pitbull fight and who we think Alvarez should fight next in the UFC. The next fight we wanted to broach was GSP versus Carlos Condit. Both of those guys are going to be fighting in a month for the UFC welterweight strap. Condit, the interim champion right now. GSP, obviously the current champion who's been on the rack for a long time with a knee injury. It's going to be an extremely exciting fight. George St. Pierre, really coming off this knee injury. We aren't sure what his status is going to be and whether or not he's going to be good to go for Carlos Condit, actually inviting Carlos Condit to aim at his busted up knee. Really, I think everyone agrees that GSP's knee is going to be the crux of the entire fight. If he's 100% GSP, he's obviously the favorite. But if he's even at 85%, I actually give the edge to Carlos Condit because he's looked absolutely superb in his last bit of fights. And I wanted to go around the roundtable. Obviously, we'll preview it the week before it pops up, but it's about a month away, and I wanted to get some early thoughts from you guys on that welterweight championship, George St. Pierre versus Carlos Condit. Patrick?
Yeah, I think that fight really is a close fight. I like Carlos Condit in so many areas. He has a really well-rounded skill set. He's got good striking, both punching and with his knees. He's got a really good jiu-jitsu game as well. He's very active. I just think, even though I like some of his skill set a little bit better than GSP, I think that what GSP does, he just does so well. He may not have as many moves in his arsenal as Carlos Condit, but I feel he's just got better quality moves. And for me, it's really hard to pick against GSP. In spite of his layoff, he's been out, nearly a year and a half. And pardon me. And in spite of how good Carlos Condit has looked, GSP, like many great champions, he just has a way of making would-be contenders look kind of foolish against him. And he really does have great game plan. He'll outstrike the wrestlers. He'll out-wrestle the strikers. And, he can beat most people just about anywhere. So I've got to go with GSP just in the early going. I mean, until I see GSP lose again and more frequently, it'll be hard for me to pick against him.
For me, the only way to beat GSP is to be able to neutralise his wrestling and to have the advantage of feet. Now, there's a guy at the minute that has shown me to do that, and I think this guy who is going to push George St. and who could possibly neutralise the wrestling and has the power on the feet. The obvious one for me is Johnny Hendricks. Carlos Condit is a fantastic fighter. He'll also come in with a good game plan. But like Patrick said, it's just whatever GSP does, he just does so well. The way I see this fight going is GSP is going to want to take Carlos Condit down, and he's going to use his wrestling to control it and cause damage. I don't think he'll come close to finishing the fight because Condit is good enough to be able to survive for 15 minutes. At the start of each round, where there could be a threat, is Condit is capable of knocking people out. We saw it against Dong Kyun Kim, where Kim went for the takedown and Condit threw the knee and caught him with the knee. So it's quite a possibility that he could catch GSP. We've seen GSP knocked out before, but if I'm being honest, I think GSP will out-wrestle Condit and will win a decision. If we ever get to see GSP versus Hendricks, I think Hendricks could be the one that takes the title off GSP.
That's some interesting ideas, but I just kind of want to break it down, kind of these variables. Let's think about it. Carlos Condit absolutely put on a masterful performance against Nick Diaz. As much as everyone hated that fight, I absolutely adored it just for the fact that Condit never broke from the game plan, and he played Nick Diaz like a violin. I mean, he was circling out of every exchange. All the shit-talking, what I love from Nick Diaz, never affected him once. He circled out. He got away. He put on some impressive combinations. At first, I thought that Nick Diaz had won that fight based off pressure. But if you go back and look at it,
all right, it looks like we broke up from Chris for 1 second. Let's hopefully. I switched internet connections to something that's hopefully a little bit faster. Back up about 10 seconds.
You guys hear me?
I can
Yeah.
hear you, Chris.
Patrick?
No, I'm here.
Okay, what's going on?
Hey,
Chris, carry on, Chris. Carry on.
Okay.
carry on.
Yeah, so reverb on Patrick. Man, this is like fucking who's on first. All right, so Carlos Condit put in a masterful performance, and if you go back and look at the history of his career from the WC till his last fight against Nick Diaz, has looked absolutely phenomenal. Fight of the night against Martin Kampmann in a very close fight. He did lose, but it was very controversial. Then he fought Jake Ellenberger, and look at the impressive run that Ellenberger's been on. Ellenberger's a power-punching wrestler, knocked down Condit twice in the first round with hard shots that have put lesser men down and out, and Condit roared back to win that fight. Same thing with Rory McDonald. He got absolutely manhandled by McDonald for 2 rounds, just about, and then came back in that third, put on an absolutely spectacular beating, knocked out Dan Hardy with 1 punch, knocked out Dong Kyun Kim with the knee. He has looked absolutely sensational. And as far as GSP goes, I think all the listeners out there know who GSP is. I don't really have to break that down. So
Who's GSP?
He's a French-Canadian guy, really buff, goes at, takes people down. Yeah, so GSP has one of the best games in MMA. I love him as a fighter, but I've had less respect for him in the last couple of years. He's become a safer fighter, and I can't blame him for it as a professional athlete, but I think Carlos Condit is the kind of guy that will make GSP fight him. Not an employ strategy, but really fight him, and I think this fight is going to be a dogfight.
Yep. I really agree with that fact that this is going to be a dogfight, because Condit isn't just going to sit back and let GSP, take him down. As far as striking, Condit is not a slouch. He has put people down with head kicks, put people down with submissions, put people down with hard counter punches, hooks, uppercuts. Looked amazing in his last couple fights, especially that one against Dong Kyun Kim. It is truly going to be a barn burner, and we have these guys who are pretty much royalty in mixed martial arts. You have George St. Pierre, Anderson Silva, and Jon Jones, and I feel like this is the toughest matchup for any of those guys in a really long time. Anderson, GSP, Jon Jones. The last time any of those guys have been beaten was probably the biggest upset in UFC history when Matt Serra beat George St. Pierre. Other than that, it has been years and years since any of these guys have lost. And in this period of time, I really think Condit poses the most challenges toward one of these guys who are as hard as royalty, as high as royalty, and and gives him a real challenge. I'm looking forward to it. UFC 154, November 17th. Did either of you guys have anything to add before we move on to one more fight we want to offer up some early thoughts on? I'll take that as a no. Brad Pickett versus Eddie Wineland was actually a fight we were talking about a week or two ago, and I was absolutely thrilled to see it get made. I forget if it was myself or Chris who originally proposed it, but I remember there were agreements all around, because these are truly at their weight class, they are the hardest hitters. They are the strongest punchers, and both of these guys much prefer to stand and bang than take it down to wrestle play a little jiu-jitsu, whatever. Pickett, his nickname is literally One Punch because he's known for some fantastic knockouts. Eddie Wineland may as well be nicknamed One Punch. His last fight against Scott Jorgensen was absolutely incredible. That counter left, it's ingrained in my mind, just the ferocity of that. Both of these guys really can swing. Personally, I'm giving a slight edge to Eddie Wineland. I feel like he's a little bit more all-around proficient. I feel like if it really needed to be turned into a wrestling match, Wineland would win, and that's really the only reason I see Wineland winning. I find it incredibly hard to give the standing edge to either guy, because both of them have proved how powerful they are the last year or two.
Very, very true. Both of these guys, even in defeat in the UFC, haven't looked that bad. I mean, I guess I kind of just ruined my own point. Brad Pickett looked pretty shit against Renan Barão, but since that fight, I mean, if you go back before he fought Renan, he had just beaten Ivan Menjivar, who as we all know, is just tough as nails. Lost to Renan Barão, went in there against Damasio Page and put an absolute beating on him, I think. I mean, it was a little back and forth, but choked him out. And then in the last round, his last fight, he knocked out Yves Jabouin, who had never been finished by knockout, at least in the UFC. So Brad Pickett is one of those guys that has spectacular boxing. He out-wrestled Demetrius Johnson to win that fight when DJ was still at bantamweight. So I give him the edge in being well-rounded, and I think that he's well-rounded enough to where he choked out a few guys, a guillotine, Peruvian necktie. He's knocked out guys like Yves Jabouin, and he out-wrestled Damasio Page. He is a fantastic bantamweight. Eddie Wineland is no different. The guy doesn't have a submission game, so his opponents know that he's not going to go for a sub. He has been submitted by Hani Yahya in the WEC, so that is his kryptonite. But you go back and you look at his recent fight list. Let's see here. Uriah Faber, Joseph Benavidez, and Scott Jorgensen. He has fought power-punching wrestlers in his last 3 fights, and he's about to face a guy that isn't a power-punching wrestler. He's a power-punching mixed martial artist. So I think it's going to be an absolute barn burner.
Who are you picking to win?
Oh, I'm not sure, man. That's the thing. That's why I didn't pick one.
I'm putting you on the spot.
All right. I think there's a lot of intangibles. If I had to lean toward who has better percentage of winning, I would have to go with Brad Pickett.
Really quick, Ray, before you make your pick, I'm just going to guess that you go for the guy from the UK. Go ahead.
I want to ask a quick question. I didn't see this fight, but I know Brad Pickett has a win over Demetrius Johnson. Did he out-wrestle Demetrius Johnson? Because
he out-wrestled
pretty impressive.
The hell out of him. I'm talking slams, trips, single legs. It was a 3-round domination shutout for Brad Pickett.
See, I mean, I think Brad Pickett has really come on a long way. I know he lost to Renan Barão, and you touched on how he didn't look that great in that fight. But I mean, Renan Barão is an absolute beast. I've actually been at Brad Pickett's last 3 fights in UFC. I've actually been there live for each fight. His fight with Demetrius Page was stunning. It was another short fight, but he won fight of the night because it was such a good fight. And then obviously he won knockout of the night for his. I'm sure he won knockout of the night for his finish of Yves Jabouin, which again was a hell of a knockout. just come out of nowhere. And the thing was, going into that fight, everyone was saying, if you looked at the fight, you broke the fight down, Jabrin had the advantage on the feet, but Pickett's advantage was he can get him down and he's capable, obviously, of choking him out, which we've seen him do before. But Brad Pickett is just one of these guys that, as you've said, is a mixed martial artist. He's very well-rounded. Eddie Wineland looked absolutely awesome against Scott Jorgensen, and doing the MMA math, Scott Jorgensen has obviously got a win over Brad Pickett. I don't know necessarily who's got the advantage in wrestling because of what we've just talked about with Demetrius Johnson, and obviously Brad Pickett has got a very good submission game. It's a very, very hard fight to call. I do think whoever wins this fight will probably go on and get a title shot against the winner of Barao and Cruz, because I just think these two guys are probably the next in line after what Ian and Barao did to Uriah Faber. But yeah, I'm going to lean towards Pickett just because he's UK.
And this really is just practically a coin flip of a fight to pick. Like we talked about, both of these guys just have great skill sets. I think both of them are really great boxers. I'd perhaps give a slight power edge to Wineland, but then again, like we talked about previously, Brad Pickett showed us in his fight with Yves Dubuin why his nickname is rightfully One Punch, as his boxing is very sweet, and that uppercut was just perfect placement. I mean, that was just a sight to behold. Eddie Wineland too, I think he's a little bit bigger. I don't know exactly how much, but I would say he's a slightly larger
1 inch.
Fiver. Okay, yeah, they're very slight.
I'll show you 1 inch.
I'm sure you will. And, it's a fantastic fight. Just as close as they get. I think, as good as Pickett's wrestling is, I think Wineland has really been working on his takedown defense. He's really been getting it better. I think that showed in his fights against Uriah Faber and Joseph Benavidez. This is just a hell of a fight to call. Both have great chins. And I'm almost leaning Wineland just because, I love Brad Pickett. He's an insanely good fighter, but it seems like just a couple of his fights, he's had a problem with some of the taller opponents. Yves Dubuin, even though he did get knocked out, he was certainly, he had Brad Pickett in some good trouble. He was throwing some knees. He must have watched the Henan Burrell fight because it was very similar to how Henan Burrell ended up getting the finish of Pickett, using the length and using those clinch knees. And we saw Eddie Wineland use that to devastating effect in his fight. So it's going to be very interesting. It's such a hard fight to call. I'd have to give a 51-49 advantage to Eddie Wineland, I'd say.
Yeah, it's really going to be close. Both of them can land some insane power shots, do some fucking awesome wrestling. Let's not stress on Pickett Wineland for too long. You guys ready for the boneheads of the week? I almost said month. I don't know why.
I'm ready.
Let's do this.
Boneheads
Are you guys
of the week.
alright?
I'm alright.
You alright?
I'm alright.
Chris, you alright?
Patrick, are you okay?
I'm okay.
Then let's do this shit.
Let us do that. Alright, personally, my bonehead of the week goes to the California State Athletic Commission. If we were doing this podcast longer, I'm sure they would be a multiple-time winner. But, just some boneheaded shit going down with the Feijiao suspension. If you're not really aware, Ed Soares, someone who I don't necessarily agree with all the time, Soares has been insanely critical of them recently, and has every right to be like that. The CSAC, like they should have, suspended Feijiao for taking a banned substance. Feijiao appealed this, and it turned out that there were multiple steps down the line that the CSAC messed up. The chain of custody wasn't right. The proper form of testing was not employed. There was just a lot of holes in their game, and the CSAC even admitted to it, the California State Athletic Commission, if you're not familiar. and they were the same people who suspended Sonnen for a year. And even though they admitted they messed up, they kept the suspension. They didn't even shorten it. Just, these state athletic commissions have no one to answer to, and in doing that, they've become incredibly cocky. They don't care, and that's why the CSAC is my bonehead, Chris.
That's a great bonehead of the week. Those guys make most of their money bring in their revenue, kind of like cops do. They have a quota by busting people, and they fucked up, and they won't admit that they fucked up, and that's stupid. My bonehead of the week is the Calgary Commission. Matt Riddle has been suspended for marijuana use, and his win over Chris Clements? I think it was Chris Clements, has been overturned as a result of that from UFC 149. And now, what the thing is that, okay, I could understand a lot of people out there hating on marijuana because, they've just been brainwashed. But this dude went through a crazy process of getting fingerprinted, submitting himself to a background check, and he paid $600 in fees. He didn't go out there and just pay $50 to some Yahoo on Skype that doctor said, all right, now you can smoke marijuana. He did the legit medicinal way to go, told the commission in advance that he smokes marijuana, got popped for it, and got suspended. You guys are fucking boneheads. You didn't stop him from fighting. You busted him after he was fighting so you could get some money out of him, and you're fucking with this guy's livelihood. So you guys are boneheads. Why don't you go ahead and man up, come up with a better solution, because being told that some guy, that Matt Riddle here is using a substance that you feel is banned, never should have let him fight. You let him fight anyways. That makes absolutely no sense to me at all.
All right, my bonehead of the week is Bjorn Rebney for simply degrading, devaluing the female MMA. You've got a title fight. You don't put it on the unaired prelims, and I haven't read into this properly, but I'm pretty sure as well that the champion is fighting in a hometown as well, or near a hometown. It just makes no sense. You're devaluing the title. You're making the title worthless by putting her so far down the card. So that's why I've picked Bjorn Rebney as my bonehead for devaluing women's MMA.
Great, a lot of great choices this week, guys. For my bonehead of the week, I'll have to go Dana White, just by virtue of making the Chael Sonnen and Jon Jones fight. We talked a little bit earlier about how there just may not be enough matchups to make in that fight, or in that respect for both opponents. There may not be enough marketable big money fights for Jon Jones. And the reason for that is because they don't develop their prospects the way they should. If they put together a good hype package around Glover Teixeira, if they got his fights on FX instead of perhaps like a Big Fox instead of FX or Fuel or whatever it may be, get this guy out there, get your prospects out there, do some UFC Unleashed shows, do something, make sure that your Fox Sports radio partners are getting in on everything. It's just, they're not hyping these guys enough, and they keep seeming to rely on the same people. And, the only reason we have the stars that we do are because they're established and they've had hype built around them. And, it just seems they're failing to do that. And, here we are. We've got Chael Sonnen versus Jon Jones, coaching the 17th season of Ultimate Fighter, which no one cared about. So for that reason, Dana White's my bonehead of the week for making Chael Sonnen versus Jon Jones.
Man, as far as who I want to nominate for my overall bonehead, I really want to nominate Dana White. I think Jones Sonnen is sort of a sham, but business-wise, I can see why you're going to do it. I mean, this literally might be to save the whole Ultimate Fighter series. I mean, they've been struggling very, very hard since moving over to FX. They've been struggling for any sort of a ratings bump that they can get. And at least for that reason, I'm going to spare Dana White, because you are going to see some records set, some Ultimate Fighter ratings records set for Jon Jones versus Chael Sonnen. Can't wait. I'm going to side with Ray. I'm going to go with Bjorn Rebney. The fact that they're putting Zoila Gurgel down on the non-televised card is just such a disgrace. Miesha Tate actually went on a pretty long rant saying basically what I said, saying that she'd never fight under the Bellator card because of that. And yeah, it is a slap in the face to women's mixed martial arts for him to pull this kind of bunk shit. Chris?
Huge slap in the face. I actually, I didn't know about this until you brought it up, Ray. I had no idea that happened. So as you were talking about it, I was sitting there thinking, wow, are you kidding me? You're absolutely right. And having actually talked to Miesha, I'm gonna side with Bjorn Rebney being a bonehead. I cannot see the validity or the thought process in taking a champion and not airing it on your main card, which isn't even a pay-per-view. It's on MTV. Come on, son, get with it, Bjorn. I mean, these girls, are going out there and training hard and fighting, and I think they need as much exposure as possible, and they're not going to get that if you keep them hidden on the prelims. Makes no sense.
Well, before I vote for mine, on a side note, there's been one of the biggest women fighters on the UK scene has basically said they're not going to fight anymore because of how badly she's been treated. Now, I don't know all the details, but that's Rosie Sexton, and she's quite a big name on the UK, and she feels very hard done by. So it just shows you, as much as women's MMA is coming on, especially with Invicta, and obviously Strikeforce has been giving the women some great publicity and what they deserve. Basically, there is still a lot of it going on that where they're not being treated properly. But I'm going to vote for the Calorie Commission. I mean, they're an absolute mockery of Matt Riddle. I mean, to know something going in, to do nothing, and then to basically leave him out, hang him out to dry and make an example of him. It's just a disgrace. So I'm going to vote for the Calorie Commission for my bonehead of the week.
Yeah, there's so many boneheads this week. I really want to go with both athletic commissions, both Calgary and the California State Athletic Commission, just because, like Jake and Chris had pointed out, just the kind of stuff that they pulled is typical political scumbag moves that we see get pulled just all the time here in the United States. Doesn't matter if what level of government you're talking about, but it's just disgusting, and it needs to change. But at the same time, I'm going to have to go with Bjorn Rebney as well, just because he's a promoter of Bellator, which is one of the biggest MMA promotions in the world. I mean, realistically speaking, just I think just about everyone would agree. I mean, there are a lot of bigger shows that are on the rise right now, but as it stands, I wouldn't put ONE FC above Bellator as far as reach and credibility. Not just yet. And here's Bjorn Rebney just doing a terrible job by putting Zoila Frausto-Gurgel on the undercard in a title fight. I mean, it's obvious the fans want these women's MMA fights. I believe the last time Bellator actually had an online contest where the fans could vote which fight they wanted to be promoted from undercard to a main card. I think there was an injury a few cards back, and it was an overwhelming favorite in favor of there was a particular women's MMA fight. It escapes me which one it was, but overwhelming favorite. It was voted on to live TV. And ever since Bellator has gone from Fox Sports Net to MTV2, they've completely abandoned women's MMA, and it's very disheartening to see. I mean, I remember seeing Megumi Fuji fight in Bellator on Fox Sports Net, and I can only remember one, maybe two WMMA fights in Bellator since they moved to MTV2. So Bjorn Rebney's definitely the bonehead of the week.
So looks like with 3 votes, our overall bonehead is Bjorn Rebney, and we will wind this podcast down. It's we're upcoming on the 2-hour mark, and hats off to Ray for doing this every week, staying up late. The man's got a life of his own to live, and he stays up every Monday night from midnight to 2 with us talking MMA. So if any one of us individually deserve any credit, any applause, it's definitely our boy Ray Thompson over in the UK. But let's really quickly touch on 2 more topics before we put a bow on it. Really quick, the current season of The Ultimate Fighter's going on. It, like the last season, is getting pretty low ratings. You have Shane Carwin and Roy Nelson being the coaches. And, it's almost ironic that Dana White has been pushing exciting fights so much. We've been seeing a lot of decisions. Both guys almost feel so pressured to finish the fight and move on that we just see these fights that aren't that compelling. What I necessarily don't like about the current Ultimate Fighter season, I'm all down for prank wars between coaches. The prank wars between Koscheck and GSP, that was fun. The prank wars between Mayhem and Bisping, that was fun. But I don't care about seeing prank wars between a bunch of amateur fighters I've never heard of my entire life.
Yeah, definitely. Something we can all chat on next week on the MMA Roundtable, for sure.
None of you have any topics on it? I really, after discussing it to that length, I don't really want to just table it and bring it up next week.
Okay, I'll jump in. I enjoy every season of The Ultimate Fighter. I've watched it from season 1. I've always loved Ultimate Fighter. I've never ever watched a season that I've not enjoyed, and I'm watching the current season we're talking about. I'm also watching Tough Smashes as well, which is obviously the UK versus Australia, which I'm enjoying. And I know a lot of people are a lot more critical about the Ultimate Fighter, but I've never ever not enjoyed it. And we're talking about the show this week. The fight this week for me was absolutely fantastic. It was Eddie Ellis and Colton, I can't remember what his surname is now off the top of my head, but the guy, Colton, coming in, he was probably one of the most popular guys in the house because of his fake glove touch in the preliminary fight. But I don't know how you couldn't like him after that fight. He took an absolute beating in round 1, he got dropped twice, and he was being dominated. Then he comes back in round 2, takes Eddie Ellis down, and literally beats the shit out of him. Eddie Ellis was an absolute bloody mess. And to make it even worse, for whatever reason, with about 45 seconds to go, when Eddie Ellis is bleeding from everywhere on his head, Herb Dean stands him up, says, "You're not causing enough damage." I don't know what fight he was watching. The judges gave it 10-8, so he was causing enough damage. So that was ridiculous. And then obviously I think everyone thought Eddie Ellis was going to get back into the fight, but Eddie Ellis got rocked again. For me, that was fight of the season. And obviously every year we get guys on it that we don't like, and there's a few idiots on this show. But overall, I think it's been a great season. I can't wait. I look forward every week. I look forward to the episodes. I wake up Saturday morning, I download it and I watch it, and then I have to wait for Wednesday for Tough Smashes. I think it's brilliant. Put it on 7 nights a week for me.
Smashes was fantastic. I've been keeping up with it. The Ultimate Fighter, American version is, it's a lot more debauchery. You have a lot more crying and throwing stuff and breaking shit, and there's a lot more respect with Tough Smashes. Those guys are, you have a lot of people with character and, just interesting ways of speaking. I enjoy that a lot more. I think that, no matter what, yes, the format is stale. Yes, they're not world beaters, but ultimately, I'm going to tune in every single week because I love MMA that much. I'm going to watch it. It's a fight. There's going to be a live fight, or at least a fight that you're going to be able to watch and see their training. You're going to get inside their heads. I've never understood why hardcore fans wouldn't actually want to watch it. I'm totally into it.
Yeah, I've always been into The Ultimate Fighter ever since The Ultimate Fighter 1. I've got to admit, though, the last couple seasons just have not done it for me. I think Tough Live I liked. They got some prospects. I really wasn't expecting them to really come up with anyone good after skimming the lightweight talent pool so many times here in America. But, you know, this is just another season. And to be quite honest, I saw the season debut episode where they all fight to get into the house, and like no one stands out in my mind. I don't remember anyone's names. I don't remember anybody's fights. I have it set to record on my TV, and I will fast forward through an entire episode and watch the fights, and it's just, I just don't even care anymore. Like I try and keep up with it to a certain extent just because I know, you know, most of these guys are going to fight on the Ultimate Finale. And, you know, it's a good opportunity to watch them and study them. You know, if you're looking to make some fantasy predictions or if you're looking to make some money off of it, whatever, you know, it's good for that respect just because you get to see these guys fight so many times and you get to see them training with each other. You get to see kind of what their mental attitude is like. So it's good for that. But really just besides Tough Brazil, besides the bantamweight and featherweight season of The Ultimate Fighter, it's just been getting so old for me. You know, like I said, I still record it and I fast forward, you know, if I don't have the time to watch it. But generally speaking, I'll just fast forward and just watch the fights. But yeah, it's doing absolutely nothing for me. And the FX ratings certainly seem to prove that as of late, that it's just not doing it for a lot of fans anymore.
Jake?
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I was muting there. I was talking to absolutely nobody. Yeah, we have a few topics for next week. We'll talk about, as there's no UFC this weekend either, Silva saying he'd fight Jones at a catchweight, Renan Barão saying he's going to keep his interim belt and wait to fight Cruz to unify the championships. As always, thank you guys for tuning in. We're live every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, midnight, I believe, UK, if you're one of our UK listeners who has the testicular fortitude to stay up as long as Ray does to help host this. You want to shout out MMA Mental and throw out your guests one more time before we wrap her up?
Yeah, I want to quickly just shout out. We've got an event this Friday that we're sponsoring. It's Fat Boys Cage Productions Halloween Massacre, which is sponsored by ourselves. If anybody wants any tickets, there's $200 for a table, $20 for a seat. Also, they're still looking for some fighters if you want to fight. It's based in Poplar, Montana, and you can call Cody on 406-768-8514. We've got Omar Frederick and John Albert confirmed for this week. Omar Frederick is a top UK prospect. Obviously, John Albert is fighting in the UFC bantamweight division. And for next week, we've got Pat Miletich, who obviously everyone knows who Pat Miletich is, and Brian Rogers, who's actually fighting this weekend on Bellator, and he's going to come and talk to us afterwards about his win, hopefully.
10-4, definitely tune in. Go to MMAmental.com to check that out. Check MMA Mental out on iTunes as well. As far as we go, check us out at themmapodcast.com. We're definitely going to have a guest this week after making the transition and not having guests. It's been too long. So tune into the website or Twitter at the MMA Podcast to see who we'll have on. Yeah, we are every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. So until the next roundtable, gentlemen, I will talk to you later, and we gone.
Peace.